All right, so you see the headline of this video, updates on our world from the original key player himself. So let me just make that land so in case it's confusing. First of all, the branding of the original key player, that's just me, Parker, talking from the perspective of like a new and invented person that I like kind of created. You know, as we were born, and then we're subject to just the language that we're brought up in and the conditioning of the society and the culture and the community and even the family, especially the family that we're, you know, subject to or exposed to and raised by. The way of being that we wind up being just becomes something that's kind of given to us. We don't have a whole lot of conscious thought, conscious choice in that. And as we get older, we can create who we are and create our world, right? So I was doing this exercise in a transformational event. It was at Wild Emergence in Sedona with none other than the Skagen squad themselves. And one of the exercises was to pick a new name. Like, connect with your intuition, your inner child, your inner being, like your heart, and have a conversation with yourself and include God in it and come up with like a new name, like a new label for like this new person, a new way of being that you want to be known as, not the one that was just given to you by other people. And so, as some of you may know, I appreciate it when some of my friends who know me and get me, when I call them up on the phone, they're just like, "What's up, KP?" A friend of mine said that, Chris Ade said that to me. "What up, KP?" And something about it it felt like I was coming home. It felt like he gets it, he sees me, he knows who I am. And so I've kind of coined that nickname for myself. KP stands for the original key player. And what that really ultimately to me represents, for any of you who care, right now we've got one of you live. So no, I'm just kidding. I know there's many more than that who actually care. But what it means to me is like, I've drilled down into this a lot and spent a lot of time and money and effort to drill into it. Like, we all have two purposes in life. One of them is a purpose that we all share, and that's the purpose to expand the consciousness on the planet, expand the consciousness of what we really are. My view is that consciousness, God, source, has individuated itself into billions of different separate selves, separate perspectives. And that's just the number of them that are alive on the planet right now. And so we all share that common purpose, expanding consciousness, basically allowing experiences to come into our consciousness via the five senses of our body. And also there's our own thoughts that create experience in us, and our own emotions that create experience in us. So between all those things, to allow experience to come through us and expand our consciousness and make us greater and richer than what we were. So that's the one purpose. The other purpose that we each have is individual. It's like our karmic purpose. It's like what this body mind, this particular one that I'm pointing at, Parker Winder, has to do during its short little window on this earth in order to die complete. And so when I talk about the key player movement, this is something that I'm speaking into existence. It's an act of creation. I'm not describing a group of 100,000 people who already wear the key player shirts and hats and swag and go around being key players in their lives and helping people and lifting people up and helping people be seen and heard and understood and expressing themselves artistically from stage and creating workability and harmony across the different key domains of their lives. That's not like, there's not already a group of 100,000 people who do that, right? As you know, right now it's the lone wolf and a few of the early adopters. Just like it's in its infancy, but it's an act of creation, something that I'm creating. And when I go live on social media and when I open up on different things, I'm basically allowing for a window for you to see the process of creation. Maybe one day people will look at it and, well, I'll tell you this, I've got a friend who I met over at Kevin Nation's house, and his name's Garrett J. White, and I just really admired him and looked up to him for years before I met him, and then met him there and still admired him, and then looked up to him and admired him years after. And he was going through some growing pains and some different things, and he was very genuine and sincere and open about that and transparent about that. But I watched him, and I would get into his sales funnel and put in my email address and get updates and see what their newest offers were and what their newest branding message was. And over the years, and then I'd unsubscribe, give it 6 months rest, and then check back in, check it out later, and buy some stuff and support him and do what I could to support him, and then also to learn from what he's doing, because I was just so impressed by it, frankly. And then it seemed like there was this tipping point where all of a sudden one day it was like Garrett J. White came out of nowhere, and he's driving an Aventador and he's got this amazing relationship, obviously amazing relationship of love and connection with his wife, and he's just got this growing movement of thousands of people. And at his events, everyone comes dressed in the same the same outfits and the same branding, and he is such a master of branding and promotion. And I was just so impressed, and it was just this, it's not some marketing ploy, this is an actual movement. Wake Up Warrior, if you don't know about it, go check it out, watch his video, it'll captivate you. It captivated me tons of times. I've watched it several times, shared it with a lot of friends and family. And part of me sees that and admires it so much. And I do admire it so much. And I want to create something similar, but something that's unique to me. I love the fact that this guy is so on point with his purpose and the clarity of his purpose that he's not, quote unquote, in my view, working and grinding and hustling. And of course there's effort and there's things getting done and there's things happening. But what it is his purpose is in such alignment with who he really is that he's going to do it for the rest of his life, no matter how many millions his monthly profit goes to. Doesn't matter. It's about expanding his impact. It's about expanding himself. It's about helping, expanding and growing the contribution, the significance of the contribution that he's making. And he's going to do it to the day he dies, because that's just who he is. He can't help it. And that was the first guy that I saw go from just a regular dude to having made it, wealthy, famous. And I want to be known by millions of people and seen and heard and understood and felt, and have my contribution impact millions of people across the globe too. So, I'm 10 years younger than this dude, Garrett White. So I I give myself a little bit of grace, but I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't sometimes find myself comparing myself to him and feeling jealous and feeling behind where I want to be. And so just kind of so you know, when I say the key player, I'm branding myself as the creator of this movement because I feel like I'm continually working on drilling down the specificity and the clarity of that message and that purpose as an example for something that might be possible for you or any of my key players or anybody in my life that wants to glean from an example of watching somebody take a similar path to any movement maker. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a religious one, a cult leader, whatever your thing is, whatever your karmic purpose is in our world, do that. And I'm clear that I don't know for sure, I suppose, but I'm pretty sure that the process of becoming that kind of leader who can lead a movement like that is messy. It involves a lot of pain, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of quote unquote problems, but definitely challenges, things that aren't working. Yeah, I'd say breakdowns. And just like learning that comes with all that. And my intention when I open up on Facebook Live and stuff like this is just to be as transparent as I can be and kind of allow you to watch the process of a kid go from, struggling with things and working things out and then struggling with other things and like his ego of where he wants to be seen as cool and impressive and he wants to be recognized and get that validation. And so he postures himself and positions himself like he's got a little more figured out than he does. And then his whole world kind of comes crashing down and he realizes that he can fake it all he wants, but it's not really going to get him to the outcome that he wants faster. So then hopefully humbling himself enough and then opening up and still not giving up and staying committed to the course. And in my case, having family members and ex-parents-in-law who aren't really fans and maybe are a little bit more truthful about his shortcomings and their version of his mistakes, and just really embarrassing. And just his ego, just watch his ego just get that he wants to be celebrated. Just watch it just get dragged through the mud and just die, essentially. Just get stepped on and shattered and mangled and broken apart. That's what egos are for. They're meant to die. Like, that's one of the purposes of the ego, is to die. Like, in the Mormon church, there's a lot of talk about like repentance is a daily process. And I suppose any Christian church, repentance is a daily process where we're like surrendering, like letting go of the ego of what we think we are and who we think we are, to open up space for Christ consciousness or that which we really are to come through more fully, with less impedances, with less blocks, with less stuff in the way. And that's a daily process, and the ego is just meant to continually die, or at least get let go of and get broken and shattered and let down and hurt, and because that's not who we are. Our ego is not who we really are. It's a part of us, but it's the part of us that's not eternal. It's the part of us that's temporary. And even when that ego dies and consciousness comes through and we create a new version of ourselves the next day, there's a new ego that gets created by virtue of the machinery, that's the survival mechanisms that's wired up in our brains. And I'm doing a lot of work, and my work is centered in like learning the awareness to help people, myself first and foremost, to disidentify from that identity of that separate self that we think we are, or what we could say the ego, and work with it, but not be attached to it like it's who we are. And it's kind of embarrassing, honestly, how it is embarrassing how blind I have been to my own ego and how blind we often are to our own egos. But at the same time, there's technology, and there's technology in what I would call coaching, but there's technology that is here, alive on the planet, working, where people can see our blind spots. And so with that, we can kind of have our ego not get in our way so much, but it takes probably a lifetime of consistent work to like master that. There's a few masters who have, in my view, mastered it. Some of them are religious, some of them aren't. Most of them who I know aren't even religious, but there definitely are some great ones who are religious too. I don't even think religion in itself has anything to do with it necessarily. So some updates in our world from my view is that we as a human species are going through what's going to be called and universally called the Great Awakening. We went through the Great Depression last century, and this century I think it's about the Great Awakening. Consciousness expanding is accelerating faster and faster and faster, and with that comes breakdowns, pain, scarcity, frustration, fear, and more abundance than ever before, right? And so with that, the ultimate game that we're all playing, I believe, is the game of our own internal self-healing, because how we see the world out there, the 3D world that we're seeing coming in, is a reflection back to us of who we are being. And the things about the outside world that we don't like are the reflections back to us of the parts of ourselves that we don't see, and we don't want to see because it's painful. And so what I'm practicing, and I'm not as good at it as I want to be, but what I'm practicing is waiting for and watching for, like going about my business, going about my intentions, and being sensitive for when, not if, but when things in the outside world out there from my view show up that trigger and hurt me, that like stimulate any type of negative feeling. And literally in that moment, disconnecting from the outside world, unattaching from the outside world, and just tuning in inside my body to what the pain is that gets brought up inside of me, and just seeing it, like giving it, showering it with abundant attention and acceptance and validation, and giving it all the time and space that it needs. And then watching as that thing in the outside world, whatever the breakdown was, just watching as it dissolves and becomes less and less triggering to me, and just works itself out. So rather than going into the world and fighting with reality and making things happen and forcing things to happen and being attached to certain things happening and needing them to happen so much I'm willing to work hard and hustle and grind, I think that's an outdated. There's probably a place for it, and as long as it's super fun and fulfilling, then I would say it's probably cool to do. But for me, my view is that that's more of an outdated, that's based on like an outdated worldview. And what's more powerful in my observation is like, instead, don't put any effort, like take a second, a minute, or an hour, or a day or a week sometimes, and don't put any effort on changing the outside world, and instead just noticing what it brings up in me. And you could say healing that, but basically just exposing that pain inside of me to the generous present moment. Consciousness, God, source, that which we all really are, but only right now. And holding that pain up and out for the, and when I say up and out, I just mean under the spotlight of my mind, of my attention, for God to heal and for consciousness to just see and be aware of. And that unseen part of me, as long as I'm willing to totally feel that pain and surrender to it, like let go of the identity that I think I am, like release that part of myself, then that wound inside of me is a little more healed, a little bit more whole. I'm a little more present. There's less stuff that gets in my way of being able to see reality and like obscure my view and make my view more biased or egoically based. And so that's the game. And what I'm up to in the world is helping people play that game. And when I say play that game, I mean like a context for life that's invented deliberately, where life can just be this fun play of a game. I don't mean to like downplay the seriousness and the importance of certain things, of anything actually. But in a certain sense, I do mean to restore the true perspective of a possibility that heaven is actually here on this planet right now. It's meant to be play and fun. It's meant to be fun for the most part. And so what I intend to do with the Key Player movement is to help musicians and artists and talented people who have an aspiration for music, to help them, people who want to be seen, heard, understood, they want to be impactful leaders, they want to be key players across the board in their lives, and literally artists, to help them operate from that worldview that I just described and create results using that methodology that I just described of basically prioritizing our own internal healing as a way of manifesting the results and the abundance in the outside world that we want, and that we're karmically predisposed to have as our purpose. Like, it wouldn't show up in your wants if you didn't deserve it, if you weren't worthy of it, and if you weren't meant to have it. It's showing up in your wants for a reason. You're meant to have it. Let's help you have it and accelerate that process of getting it and being able to manifest it consciously. And so the purpose of my work is to use music to help that game or that process become fun and enjoyable and like easy and clear to people, and help us practice it together. So that's that. I haven't really come on here live for like over a week, so I was feeling a little bit disconnected and just wanted to kind of give an update to the world of Parker, or actually our world from the perspective of Parker. Anyway, this is our world, so let's work together to create it how we want it, because we absolutely have that power, and we're more powerful together. So I don't expect this video to get very many views because there's not any toxic turmoil in it and controversial, mean-spirited like hate or like fighting, and so it's not gonna be probably as interesting to the vast majority of people. But I'm not trying to make this video attractive to the vast majority of people. Only the really the small and select few who just resonate with it. And if you do, then cool. If you don't resonate with it, I totally invite your comments. And as you know, I love having you be able to share your truth. I think if we can get there's 7 billion different people on the planet, and so there's 7 billion different perspectives on lowercase t truth. I don't even know. I do believe there is a capital T ultimate truth, but I don't know if any of us have it. So anyway, there's some ranting from Parker on his walk today. I'm out in Utah. It's gorgeous out here. It's like raining this morning. Anyway, all right, I don't see any comments or questions to respond to on this one, so I'll just let you go. Have a good day and a good weekend. See ya. Much love.